YouTube! It's your boy Stevie Blunder, back again with another World Epic Gamer segment. Today, we got a nice little presentation, the nice little Microsoft PowerPoint slide. It's the tips for new and returning players. An honest guide on what to expect and what you should know. If you're wondering why this text is cropped out, because fuck you, my webcam's over it. No, I'm not going to bother to fix it. But yeah, it's going to be mainly geared towards new and returning players, obviously. So if you're already like in the bee's knees of fucking like Dragon Link combos, this video isn't exactly going to be for you. But if you ever wanted to get into the game, these are some really good teaching points where I believe that, you know, you can sort of get them in the mood for. So, what this guide will not cover. I will not cover these topics, like what deck you should play. I'm not going to cover, like, oh, you should play like a deck that is within like XY budget, or like you should play a deck that's like combo control, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to cover shit like that. I will not cover shit like that. I will not offer like how you should play the game, like where you should play. Should you play combo? Should you play control? I'm not going to answer that. What should I buy? That's a different video. That will be a different video that I am in the process of making. Wow, we lost a lot of viewers. Why did my wife leave me? Good question. What is Seagok? I'm not going to answer ruling questions. TLDR, questions about the game, the literal game and its mechanics. I'm not going to answer those sort of questions. What this guide will cover, and these are like the main points, being open-minded, how to do your own research, setting goals for yourself, how to build and decide on a deck overall, how to learn from mistakes, understanding that Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't exactly perfect, and separating experience from reality. So, yeah, better way to just get right into it. So, 1, if you're a new player, if you're a new or returning player, do your best to be open-minded. So be accepting of the new ideas and suggestions like regarding the game, deck building, whatever. Because obviously, like, the more information that you have access to, the faster that you can learn, improve, and just, you know, overall just get better. And, yeah, that's basically it. Just be accepting of just what the game is and any advice. Even if it does come from, like, a malicious or, like, personal attacking place, like, even so, like, it's like they're being a piece of shit, but it's still advice, so take it with a grain of salt. If you're like an outsider looking into the game and just have like any preconceptions, or like an old player returning, you're gonna have to put those away, and that's gonna come up in like the last point. But understand, like, the times have changed. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has evolved as a card game, and that's something that you have to do. There are a lot of mechanics, that is true, but most of them are pretty simple. I think that's like a pretty simple. I think most of us can agree that like once you put like 10 minutes of like thinking into it, you're just like, oh, like that's a pretty like simple mechanic. Like, fusion summoning is just activate a fusion card. Ritual summoning is activate a ritual card. Synchro summoning is just you add the levels. XE summoning is you just stack the cards. Link summoning is just contact fusion. Like, it's pretty simple. It's, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's, very simple. And, like, concept. Regarding, like, new mechanics and stuff like that. Don't fall into like the sort of like mental trap of just like, oh, this card is this is too difficult and I'm not gonna learn it because there's just too much stuff to learn. Yeah, don't fall into that little like mind trap. 2, do your own research. I fucking hate people. The number one thing I hate at locals, or like just in general, is people being like, it's just people. Oh, Stevie, why can't I mirror for? Why can't I mirror force in like the damage step? Just like, or just like, oh, why can't I bottomless the polymerization activation? I'm just like, no, that's not how this shit works. Do not expect to be spoon-fed information, or like regarding the basics of the game. Like, nobody's asking you to memorize just like 50 combo lines and just like learn how to play Dragon Link within like 30 seconds. But you should at the very least know the basics of the game. Like, what's a normal summon? What's a special summon? How do you link summon? The summoning mechanics. Like, can you, can you, like, normal summon? You can't, like, what you do in the phases. And, like, what's legal? What's not legal? Not in the terms of just, like, basic game legality. Of just, like, no, you cannot attack in the fucking main phase. Or just, like, yes, a card reads, like, you cannot add, like, a level 12 monster with fucking Rhoda. Regarding this sort of research, there's a ton of great video guides that exist. Just literally Google it. Being, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Learn. This is not a video on that. This is not a video regarding, like, how to learn Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a video on how to, what to expect getting into the game. This is not like a tutorial on how to learn Yu-Gi-Oh! But yeah, the basic fundamentals rules of the game. There's a ton of video guides that exist out there. Some of mine are like tangentially related. Do your own research. Take like a day off, like grab some popcorn, watch a bunch of videos, hop on Dueling Book, go into like an online simulator and practice. If you're, and like obviously this is gonna be a new hobby that you're likely gonna be investing a lot of time and money into. Don't you think that like you should probably learn the basics before you you know, what's it called? Pick up a hobby? Because if you're not willing to do the fucking bare minimum to learning a hobby, then maybe there's maybe this hobby isn't for you, or maybe hobbies aren't for you in general. Who knows? Continued. Again, do not just be able to ask anyone to teach you out of the game out of the blue. Like, you can't just, like, I will guarantee you, unless you're a literal child, this is the only exception. Unless you are, like, a literal, like, 13-year-old child, like a 6-year-old child, do not expect to just go to locals and be like, hey, mister, can you teach me how to play DDD? And just, this dude's like, what the fuck? No. Like, no, that's not how this shit works. That's a you problem, brother. Like most veteran players, like we're happy to teach you, we're happy to offer advice. Like a lot of players, I think, are like more than happy to offer advice about like how to improve at the game, but we're not here to teach you the game itself. Like you're not gonna, like we don't have infinite time and we're not getting paid for it, so like why would we? So like there's no reason for us to, as well as there's just like, we've got other shit to do, rather than just like literally sit you down in a Discord call for like 8 hours and just like teach you how to fucking link summon. Like, again, if you can ask it, you can Google it. Google is always your best friend. Like, a calculus teacher isn't going to explain to you, like, why 1 + 1 works. Like, that is just fundamental knowledge that you should have when you're going into the class. This sort of deal. Among Us. A locals environment, although, like, it is, of course, like, a really friendly environment and a really healthy environment, it still is a competitive environment by nature, and it has competitive players. And again, these competitive players are likely not going to really, in all honesty, they're not going to teach you the game. Again, everyone's learning experience is different. Everybody's locals experience is different. This is just a general guide based on what I have seen at a lot of other locals and from a lot of others players' experiences. This is not a definitive guide or a Bible or anything. This is just what the average person's experience with Yu-Gi-Oh! Will be like when they're a new or returning player, and what you should expect. If you do not know why you cannot do a certain or basic thing, it is your responsibility to learn and know it. But a calculus teacher can explain why 2 + 2 = fish. Exactly. I've got a little math problem that I'll teach you guys later, chat. But basically, it's your responsibility to learn what cards to do. That is not our problem. If you do not know what like a card does, like that is a you problem. Like it is okay to ask to like read a card. It is okay to ask, like, whatever. But if you're reading every single card that I'm activating during a duel, that is, like, really fucked up. In the sense of where, look, man, it's not my fault that you didn't learn the game. Don't expect people to explain why you can't, like, mirror force on a normal summon like Alistair. Or don't expect people to be okay with, hey, can I, read that, fucking Stratos one more time? The card's existed for 12 years. Can I read it? Like, that's a you issue. You kind of got to know what cards do. Like, you got to learn the lingo. You got to learn the whatever. Like, that's just the reality of it. It's not our job to teach you the basics. We'll let you read the card, but we're not going to teach you. We can explain it. We cannot comprehend it. Setting smart goals. Oh, by the way, thank you for the follows, Grishigami and Bijain and Undead Khalid for the follow. Much appreciated. Love you. Remember, ! sub. Hit the follow button. Setting smart goals. What are your goals getting into this game? You want to make new friends? You want to win locals? Top of YCS? It's very important for not even just Yu-Gi-Oh, but just for anything to set an initial goal and target for yourself. But make sure it's a smart one. And if you're gonna guess, smart is a fucking acronym. So specific. Don't have a vague or like aimless goal of just something like, oh, I want to be the best in the world. I'm gonna be the best Yu-Gi-Oh player. I mean, like, you can technically say that, but it's not really specific or, like, directly, like, measurable. Like, it's say instead, maybe just like, oh, I want to top locals at least once a month. Like, that's pretty specific, and that's, like, pretty easy to measure. Speaking of measurable. Make sure your goal is, like, trackable, and not just something completely unmeasurable or, like, vague. For, like, trackable, maybe, like, how for regarding just like regarding like the locals experience that we were talking about earlier. Maybe we could say like, oh, like I want to top locals at least once a month. You can maybe like start tracking down how many times have you topped this month, how many times have you gotten close to topping, it's things like that. Don't have a goal that's like unmeasurable. That's something like I want to build a cool deck, or I want to be the coolest, or again like I want to be the best in the world. You can't really measure shit like that, or at least like definitively. Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't really have a great ranking system, so you can't really have that sort of goal in mind. Attainable is the A. Work towards a goal that's actually you can actually attain right now. Like when you think about set a goal that you can do right now. That's a little bit hard, but that's still challenging, but you can still do it. Like I will move this cup to a coaster. And I will move this cup to a coaster. That is how our brains work. Our brains thrive on this sort of what's it called? On this sort of like checkpoint progression system of like small goals being met for a larger goal. But you're not gonna win a YCS overnight. Don't learn to market an app before you learn how to code. Don't learn to run before you can walk, sort of deal. I just want to be more consistent when it comes to misplays. Yeah, like that's something specific. Like I want to make less misplays than I do every single week, and then that's something that's measurable because you can like how many misplays have you made? Like you can check how many misplays have you made in a game. Attainable, like you could just practice by yourself. Shit like that. Those are like pretty good goals. Realistic. Ambition is important, but be realistic with your long-term goals. Be realistic with your long and short-term goals. Again, only set your goals will change over time as you're getting better at the game, etc., etc. But don't set any goal just like up high in the sky. Like again, oh, I'm gonna win a YCS when you don't know how to fucking normal summon. Like, don't forget about the checkpoints that you do have to progress, because those goals are just as important as that last goal. It's just like a slightly bigger scale. And time bound. Give yourself a deadline to work towards as. Don't just like let things off and just think of it as if it happens, it happens sort of mindset. Give yourself a deadline where it's just like, oh, I'm going to train 3 days a week for locals at the absolute minimum. And that locals is sort of like your time set. But don't just go to like YCS after YCS and just be like, oh, if I top it, I top it, haha. Like think of these goals as like a lesson plan dedicated for your specific improvement. Your goals will change over time, blah 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 blah. I already said all this. Do not get discouraged at your learning speed. This is something that I see a lot of people get like upset over. Like they're just like, not even just in hobbies, but not even just in Yu-Gi-Oh, but in just any hobby or skill that they're trying to learn in general. Like different people will learn at different paces, and this is something that's completely out of your control. Everyone learns at a different pace. Do not get discouraged. However, what you can improve regarding this is how much time you decide to invest into the game. And that time can be spent, of course, just obviously improving and investing time into learning, etc., etc., etc. A casual deck versus a pile of cards. This is something that might be a bit of a hot take. Most players, I think for the vast majority of players, I think at least 90% of players, their competitive experience will begin and end at the local level. I don't think a lot of players particularly are active. I don't think maybe 10% of players are actively trying to go to regionals and top them. Regionals, YCSs, worlds, they're actually trying to get into I think that's a very small minority of the Yu-Gi-Oh community. It's the competitive section, but it's a pretty small minority in my opinion. I think a lot of players in general, they'll just go to locals, hang out with their buds, and that'll be more or less it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And these players are what I'll consider to be casual players. The people who do not invest that amount of time and money into extremely high levels of competition. However, the decks that these players play can go from literal binder bulk to fucking monarchs. Just because a deck is casual does not mean a pile of cards is always going to be a casual deck. A pile of garbage is always going to be a casual deck. But a casual deck does not necessarily mean that it's going to be some garbage pile of cards. Like, again, like there are casual such like low tier rogue decks like Monarchs, True Draco, ABC, Lightsworn, Atlantean, shit like that. Those decks are still pretty good. And they're just considered for like casuals because they may be cheap or they may be very simple and like not very good overall, blah 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 blah. I cannot stress this enough. Do not, under any circumstance, try and learn the game with a pile of bullshit. You will hinder your learning experience, and you just won't have a great time. It's just not going to be fun. Virtually nobody, including you, will have fun playing a deck that was like tier 3 in like Legend of Blue Eyes format. That's just the reality of it. Like, this is what's going to happen. Your opponent's going to get really bored while they're just comboing off because they know you literally have no hand traps. And you're going to get really mad at your opponent for playing, he's playing some dumb meta shit while I have to play this budget crap when you have to, fucking normal summon Breaker, activate Swords, pass. Like, nobody's going to have to, just play Salamangreat. That deck's expensive now, so that's not really the best answer. But yeah. Do your best to, like, if you're a casual player, you don't have to invest like $1 billion into a tier 1 fucking hypercock deck. Pick up a deck that's maybe like relatively budget. Of course, after you test it online, of course. Test all your decks online before you buy them. That's a huge one, but we'll get into that in a future video. But yeah, just keep this in mind. But if you only want to test in person, pick up maybe like a $50 to $100 deck and see where that goes. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, this is just like, again, regarding like the pile of cards and blah 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 blah. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game that's like at the current moment is very heavily reliant and focused on cards, on like synergies, combos, adaptation, and gameplay. There's like 50 side deck cards, like 100 fucking main deck, and you're just like going off and you're just like comboing like to the fucking moon. A pile of cards offers none of these. And if you're not playing the game, if you're not playing Modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, why are you trying to take this game competitively? Why are you trying to get better at the game? Like, what's the point? If you're just going to play some literal garbage, you're not going to get better playing it. You're just going to be playing a completely detached game. But yeah. If you're going to invest in a deck, don't build a deck with like zero thought and logic and think that you'll improve with playing them. You won't. You'll just lose a lot of matches. Do you know why? Do you know why? Do you know why I say this? Because I used to be this fucking player. I played Skull Servant. I played 52 card Skull Servant with fucking like 3 Mizuki, card destruction, 3 of every Skull Servant, like fucking mining for magical stones, add back card destruction. I was thinking about some fucking garbage. Like, this shit was not good. But, yeah. Do you know what happened? I got my cheeks handed to me 10 matches in a row when I was playing at locals, just like learning. And I was like, I will never be humiliated like this again. I will never play garbage that literally goes like normal summon White Prince, Link Karibo pass. Never again will I be humiliated in such a way. Never again. Mistakes are good. Repeated mistakes are not good. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's made like 1 billion misplays. You guys have seen me play fucking Appliance or like that deck is fucking. I've made like 80 misplays in just one game. That's like, decks are hard. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a hard game, and that's just the reality of the situation. And everybody will just like probably lose a couple dozen matches just because of something that they like just completely fucked up or just gone over their head. However, be sure to actually learn from your mistakes and not to brush them off as like, oh, I got sacked. Oh, my opponent's playing some meta cuck shit, etc. You make the mistake once, you never make it again. That's like my motto. Make it once, never again. I say as I forget the effect of Appliance or Electro-Lyrical World for like the 80th time. Shut up. 6. You kind of got to understand that Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't exactly the most perfect game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of the oldest TCG that exists, which kind of makes it one of the fuckiest. There's FTKs, Solitaire formats, Tier 0 formats, Floodgates, Hand Traps. The list kind of goes on. There's always going to be one part of the game, at the very minimum, that you or other people are going to have, like, something that they're just gonna fucking hate. And that's fine. Like, having issues with the things you love is perfectly fine and normal. And just, like, understanding that, like, hey, man, the shit isn't perfect, but it's something that I'm still happy with. That helps you get, like, a deeper appreciation for the game. But, if you feel yourself, like, hating the game every single time you play it, and you're hating yourself because of what the game has to offer, consider quitting. I'm serious. There's no shame in quitting. You do not have to, you don't have to, like, literally fucking, like, Guantanamo Bay tie yourself down to the fucking electrical chair just because, like, you're playing at locals. Like, if the game is, like, shitty and, like, you just don't like it, just quit. Nobody's forcing you to play this. It's a hobby. Just have fun with it. Yeah. Like, that's generally just all that I can really say about that. Do not fall into, like, the sunk cost fallacy as a player as time goes on regarding your money and time. You can always sell your cards, and the skills and time and the skills that you've learned in Yu-Gi-Oh! They're transferable. Like, of course, you could always just transition to Magic. You could transition to, like, Settlers of Catan. Like, you could transition to, like, a lot of different games. Again, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is supposed to feel like a hobby and not a job. Unless you, like, you made it yours, like, guided. Experience versus reality. This is a slide mainly aimed towards returning players. This one's for you, returning players. Playground School Arc Yu-Gi-Oh! Never existed. I guarantee you. No matter what you say, no matter what experience that you had, like, Playground Yu-Gi-Oh! Never existed. You know what my Playground meta was? Junk Warrior Pass. Like, Naturia... Okay, Naturia Beast was, like, pretty good, though. Like, Red Dragon Archfiend Pass. Shit with, like, what's it called? Like, Scrap Iron Scarecrow Dark Door Pass was, like, literally the meta. When I was, like, 10 years old. Plant Synchro and Blackwing were meta. So, keep that in mind. The Yu-Gi-Oh! You know and, like, love never really existed outside of that very small playground bubble, and will likely never exist again due to the prevalence of the internet and, like, new deck profiles and blah 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 blah. That's just the reality of the situation. Once you cope with this fact and accept that, like, the times have changed, that is when you can start actually, like, enjoying the game rather than just have your nostalgia goggles on like I did for a bit. Final talking points. If there's anything that I want you guys to keep in mind, keep this. Stay open-minded. Be willing to learn. Do your own research. And don't expect it to be spoon-fed to you. Set goals for yourself, but be realistic. Don't try and learn the game with a pile of garbage. Learn from your mistakes. Never make them twice. Yu-Gi-Oh! Understand that Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game is flawed, and that's okay. And if you played as a kid, accept that old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very long gone. And yeah. Thank you guys so much. Subscribe to my YouTube, youtube.com/StevieBlunderReal. Bazinga! Yeah, Stevie Blunder Real. Bottom text. Please just be sure to sub. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/StevieBlunder, where you can catch these segments live. And yeah, that's gonna be more or less it. See ya.